Chapter 3286. Inside the lacquered wooden box was a naked wooden figurine. It had a golden ring on its head and silver needles pierced into all the major acupuncture points on its body. It was so bright that it made people dizzy. Emolienne curled her lips. I didn't expect Madame Mu to play this trick. The two took a closer look and saw a string of birth characters engraved on the figurine's chest. Arbor thought for a moment and saw that it wasn't her mother's birth characters, nor was it her own. A trace of doubt appeared in her eyes. Nanny Chiu handed a small hammer to Mu Qingya with a murderous look on her face. Mu Qingya punched the wooden figurine and muttered something under her breath. What is she saying? Arbor narrowed her eyes. Mu Qingya was muttering in the image. Her voice was so soft that she couldn't hear it clearly. However, looking at her ferocious face, it seemed that the little person under her was her mortal enemy. Mu Qingya kept hitting the figurine with the hammer in her hand. Every time she hit it, fine beads of sweat appeared on her forehead. When she hit it for the 9th time, she seemed to be suffering from the backlash of the Yin Sheng technique. A trace of blood seeped out of the corner of her lips. Madam, Nanny Chiu hurriedly reached out to support her. It's been nearly 10 days. That long guy will get the retribution he deserves in 3 days. I know Madam is eager to take revenge, but we can't be too hasty. I've waited long enough. Mu Qingya's eyes seemed to be flickering with light. She leaned against Nanny Chiu and slowly stood up. She coughed a few times and wiped the blood from her lips. Long Shouxin deserves to die. Long Shouxin? Arbor couldn't help but be taken aback. Wasn't Long Shouxin the name of the head of the Long family branch in Longyan City? Arbor had a big conflict with Long Shouxin's family at the palace banquet. After that, she had investigated the Long family quite a bit. Why did Mu Qingya say that Long Shouxin was trustworthy? Madam, this kind of thing can't be rushed. You're using the body of a mortal to do this Yin Sheng technique. Now the backlash is not small. If you don't pay attention in time, Mu Qingya raised her hand to stop Nanny Chiu. I've waited for so long. Finally, I've found a chance to take revenge. This time, I have to seize it no matter what. Mu Qingya took a deep breath and turned to look at Nanny Chiu. Nanny, you'll help me, right? You will definitely help me. Yes, yes. Nanny Chiu nodded repeatedly. If this little technique of mine can help Madam, and let Madam untie the knot in her heart, then I will definitely help Madam without hesitation. Mu Qingya's eyes wandered as she stared at the small wooden table in front of her. Nanny Chiu took a few steps forward and lifted the black cloth covering the object. A memorial tablet appeared in front of everyone, with the words Long Chuyan engraved on it. Fresh melons and fruits were placed in front of the memorial tablet. A small birch table was wiped clean and spotless. Mu Qingya quickly walked forward. With Nanny Chiu's help, she knelt on the green futon in front of the birch table. Sister, if your spirit is in heaven, please bless me. This time, I must get rid of that traitor Long Shouxin. I'm not afraid of any hardships. I'm just worried that Long Shouxin will continue to get away with it. Sister. Mu Qingya took a few steps forward on her knees and looked at Long Chuyan's memorial tablet with gentle eyes. Don't worry. I will definitely protect Jojo for you. Chapter 3288. Lord Qiao Qiao narrowed her eyes. Her furry little head burrowed into the man's embrace and said in a small voice, If I've really wronged her, then I'll apologize to her. Emolienne pursed his lips in amusement as he rubbed the little one's head. I know my family's little emperor is the most considerate. Sir Jojo nodded his little head, stretched out a pair of slender arms, and hooked his waist as he whispered softly, Lotus, remember to wake me up tomorrow morning, the next morning. Sir Jojo rolled out of bed, blinked his eyes and looked around. His little face couldn't help but tense up. Where's Jojo's Lotus? Kai Chi, who was carrying toiletries into the room, couldn't help but smile when she heard this. The crown prince went to the palace early in the morning. Sir Jojo's little face tightened unhappily. Didn't I ask him to wake me up? Kai Chi used a lot of strength to maintain the expression on her face. His Highness did wake her up, but the crown princess was in a deep sleep, and no matter how hard he tried, she didn't wake up. Sir Jojo looked at Kai Chi and said expressionlessly, Do you feel like laughing? Saichi vigorously shook her small head with an N, but still said fearlessly, "The Crown Prince Consort is still holding on to a strand of His Highness the Crown Prince's hair without letting go. In the end, His Highness had no choice but to cut his hair. Look, isn't it still in your hand?" Sir Jojo looked down with an expressionless face. Sure enough, her white and clean little hand was still holding on to a strand of Jojo's lotus hair. Kaichi said seriously. Before His Highness left, he kept shaking his head and muttering that if this goes on, he thinks he'll become bald sooner or later. The eunuchs and palace maids who were trying hard to keep a straight face couldn't help but let out a snort, and then quickly shut their mouths. The young Crown Prince Consort hopped down from the bed expressionlessly. She casually found a brocade pouch and put Xiao Xiao's Lian's hair inside. She glanced at them from the corner of her eyes and pattered past them. After the little fellow finished washing his hands and rinsing his mouth, he turned to look at Kaichi and said, "Prepare the carriage. I'm going to Prince Kang's mansion." "Yes." Kaichi held back her laughter as she turned around and left in a hurry. The little crown princess glanced at the group of junior eunuchs and junior palace maids who had their heads lowered. She walked out with small steps and snorted, "If you want to laugh, then laugh. As soon as Jojo walks out of the room, you can laugh. Why hold it in?" Humph. The second branch of the Mu family had been bustling since early this morning. After the most outstanding young master of the second branch, Mu Erkshu, came back from the academy, the entire second branch was full of jubilation for several days in a row. They had even rewarded the servants several times. The old master's birthday banquet was getting closer and closer. Each branch was also busy raising funds and spending a lot of money to buy birthday gifts for the old master. Not only that, each branch also sent clever manservants to inquire each other about what gifts other people would give to the old master. The second branch was naturally no exception. Early in the morning, someone sent a message to the second branch's old master, saying that the expensive jade Buddha hand ordered by the fifth branch had arrived. The second branch's Madame Chiosher pushed open the door to her daughter's room and walked in. At a glance, she saw her daughter, who was wearing thin clothes and sitting in front of the dressing mirror. She was combing her hair and staring blankly at the mirror. These days, because her son came back, the house was very lively every day. She didn't pay attention to her daughter's difference. Chapter 3290. Madame Chio's words to her could be said to be harsh. She had never seen her mother with such a stern face. How could she say this to her? "Mother is saying this for your own good." Madame Chio sighed. The young lady's first awakening of love was not sensible, and her thoughts were too simple. She only saw the crown prince's gentleness and hated that she couldn't replace the crown princess. However, she didn't know that the crown prince's gentleness was all because of the little crown princess. If it were her, that man might not even cast a cold glance at her from the corner of his eyes. Don't indulge in wild fantasies. Beautiful dreams definitely won't come true. You saw His Highness the Crown Prince treating the Crown Princess gently and doting on her like a pearl or a treasure. That's because the Crown Princess is beautiful enough to make one's heart ache. If it were you, His Highness the Crown Prince wouldn't even look at you. Madame Chio coldly threw down these words and stood up to walk out. Tidy up yourself, and don't think about anything else in the future. Your grandfather's birthday banquet is only a few days away. Come out and help. Seeing Madame Chio walk out without looking back, Mu Ruian was so angry that she slapped a head ornament on the dressing table, and it fell to the ground. Her personal maidservant, who had quickly walked in, was so scared that her face turned pale. She hurriedly stepped forward and looked at the broken head ornament on the ground in shock. "Young miss, why did you break the head ornament? This is your favorite one." At this moment, Mu Roshian's heart was bleeding. How could she have known that she would break her beloved jewelry in a fit of anger? While her heart was bleeding, she also felt grief and indignation. Being scolded by her mother like this, she felt ashamed and unconvinced at the same time. Why did her mother deny all the feelings she contributed when she first awakened of love? It was really laughable. Just because she and her father were married into a family, she didn't allow her daughter to awaken to love? Was there any mother who would say that about her own daughter? Why did she say that she was inferior to the crown princess? Empty words without any comparison. Since they had never crossed swords, how could she know that she was inferior? Mu Roxian's slender fingers twisted together as she stood up and walked out quickly. Her personal maidservant hurriedly called out to her. "Little mistress, please slow down. You haven't changed your clothes yet." On the other side, Arbor's carriage had already arrived at the gate of Prince Kang's mansion. She had not sent a greeting card to Wang Fei, thinking that she had been back for 2 days and had not come to visit Imperial Aunt. She could not help but come in a hurry. Imperial Aunt had taken the warm jade pill for a long time. Today, she came over to check her pulse and see if she could use acupuncture. Who would have thought that when she arrived at the door, she would coincidentally see Princess Consort Kong coming out, surrounded by people in front and behind, looking like she was about to go out. The little fellow had just come down from the carriage and met Princess Consort Kong, who had just come out of the door. Both of them were stunned. Princess Consort Kang's eyes instantly lit up, and she quickly walked forward with a big smile. She laughed and said, "Io, I was wondering why there was a magpie chirping outside my door so early in the morning. So it's because our family's Jojo is coming. Ha ha ha. I was just about to go to the Eastern Palace to look for you. I didn't expect you to come over." Princess Consort Kong was extremely happy. She went forward and hooked her arm around Arbor's small arm, smiling intimately as she said, "Quick, let Imperial Aunt take a look. She's gotten thinner after going to the academy." Arbor could not help but be speechless. Chapter 3291. Sir Jojo's eyes lit up. "Who did you hear that from?" "It's true. Dean Yin was a miser and greedy person. Even a school uniform could be sold at a sky-high price. Who else could I have heard it from? I just heard some gossip from your Imperial Uncle." Imperial Uncle is so insightful. Arbor nodded her little head in all seriousness. Lu Lanyan couldn't help but burst into laughter when she saw this. "Let's go in and chat with Imperial Aunt. I haven't seen you in a long time. You have to stay here tonight and listen to Imperial Aunt." The young crown princess blinked. She had just raised a small hand when Princess Consort Kong pulled it down. "I'll find someone to inform the crown prince later. I'm borrowing his wife for a night. He can't be so stingy as to refuse, right?" As she said this, she couldn't help but burst into laughter first. The young crown princess tilted her head in thought, then nodded and said, "All right. Then I'll have to trouble Imperial Aunt." "Io, what trouble is there? Imperial Aunt can't ask for more," Princess Consort Kong said with a wide grin. "Imperial Aunt, I'll take your pulse in a bit. Yesterday, the old prince told Lien that all the materials on the list of medicinal ingredients have been found. Let's take a look in a bit. If your body's condition permits, we can begin the acupuncture treatment." Okay. Lu Lanyan nodded repeatedly and said with a chuckle, "There's no rush. Let's have a good chat first." "Older sister." The two of them were intimately holding hands as they walked into the estate when they heard a soft and weak call from behind them. Arbor clearly felt Princess Consort Kang's arm around her stiffen slightly, and her body involuntarily tensed up. She couldn't help but frown. She turned around with Princess Consort Kong to look at a delicate woman who was walking down from a carriage. She was dressed in white silk with a small white flower in her hair. This woman was like a willow branch swaying in the wind. Her palm-sized face was filled with tears. Before she spoke, tears had already streamed down her face. Arbor only felt Princess Consort Kang's body tense up even more. She pursed her lips and didn't say a word. "Elder sister." That weak and helpless woman looked pitifully at Princess Consort Kong. She said softly, "Sorry to disturb you. It's just that elder sister knows about my current situation. After my late husband passed away, I was chased out by his whole family. I really had nowhere to go, so I could only come and look for my sister." Lu Lanyan's face looked terrible. Arbor couldn't help but look at the delicate woman curiously. This woman looked delicate and weak, as if she would be blown away by a gust of wind. Tears flowed down her cheeks before she spoke. Standing at the entrance of Prince Kang's Fu, she looked so pitiful that the passers-by could not help but cast their gazes on her. Those who didn't know better would think that Princess Kong had bullied this woman and made her cry non-stop at the entrance of Prince Kang's mansion. The head maidservant of the Wang Fei, Danling, stepped forward with a cold smile, and stood in front of the weak woman. She said in a neutral tone, "Third young lady. Third young master suddenly passed away. Our Wang Fei has already sent people to express her condolences. She also sent consolation money, and arranged for people to send third young lady back to Lu family." Why did third young lady come to Prince Kang's Fu instead of returning to Lu family? Your maternal family is Lu family, not our Prince Kang's Fu. Danling couldn't help but roll her eyes. The old madam of Lu family was truly a weirdo. Or rather, she was someone whose mind was already biased to the heavens. She clearly knew that this younger daughter's actions were wrong, but she still tacitly allowed her to come to Prince Kang's Fu to look for her Wang Fei. Chapter 3301. How could she possibly look the young crown princess in the eye for an extended period of time? There was no harm without comparison. She originally thought that her gaze was sharp enough, but the moment she met the young crown princess, all of her sharpness turned into bubbles and shadows. The moment she saw this stoic face's expressionless appearance, she couldn't help but feel apprehensive from the bottom of her heart. The corners of Lu Yiran's mouth twitched slightly with sweat on her face, and she appropriately adjusted her stiff facial expression. "Gee, Crown Princess, why are you looking at me like that?" Arbor glanced at her coldly, and then said, "Miss Lu, it was you who kept staring at me with a strange gaze just now." Lu Yiran was actually a bit speechless. She secretly gritted her teeth, pinched the handkerchief in her hand, and said with a feigned smile, "I was thinking that since the crown princess is living in the estate, I ought to perform the duties of a host." "Crown princess, please." Lu Yiran's expression suddenly changed under the constant tugging of her sleeve by the maidservant behind her, and she forced a smile. However, that smile was too fake. When it hung on her face, it looked like a layer of paper had been drawn on, and it was even prettier when she didn't smile. Arbor expressionlessly glanced at her before turning around and walking towards the antechamber. Lu Yiran secretly shook off her personal maidservant's hand and quickly followed after her. She asked with a fake smile, "Crown Princess, pardon me for asking, but does the Crown Prince know that you've come to Prince Kang's estate just like that? Would the Eastern Palace allow you to come and go as you please? Even if the Crown Prince allowed you to live in the estate, what would the Emperor think if this matter were to reach his ears?" The Crown Princess was walking so closely with Prince Kang's estate, so she probably had some sort of scheme in mind. Lu Yiran's red lips curled slightly, presumptuously trying to figure out the Emperor's thoughts. "My Lien naturally came with me," Arbor expressionlessly replied. "That's right, the Crown Prince has to be informed what?" When Lu Yiran reached the end of her sentence, her voice suddenly rose by an octave. "His Highness the Crown Prince followed you into the estate? Is there a problem?" Arbor glanced at her, scrunched up his pink little face, and unhappily glanced at Lu Yiran. It was really annoying for him to shout in Lord Qiao Qiao's ear with all his fuss. "I don't think this is a good idea." Lu Yiran furrowed her brows and forced a smile. "Although the Crown Princess does as she pleases, she still has to consider your Highness in everything she does." Lu Yiran was just short of saying to his face, "You always let the Crown Prince leave the Eastern Palace with you, going back to your maiden home one moment, and jumping around the prince's estate the next. It's really not good." Arbor gave her a sideways glance and said confidently, "He's my husband. Wherever I go, he has to go with me. What's wrong with that?" Lu Yiran stared dumbfounded at the weirdo in front of her. "Could it be that your identity has been swapped? In their divine land, not to mention the Crown Prince's noble status, even a commoner with a high cultivation in Jianghu had the right to speak in front of women. What kind of godly logic did the little Crown Princess have? What did she mean by His Highness the Crown Prince had to follow her?" Arbor couldn't be bothered with this Lu Yiran anymore. He muttered, "You're crazy." Then, he took small steps and walked towards the front hall. It was really too much to say when they didn't see eye to eye. He didn't know what this Lu Yiran was thinking. If her husband didn't follow her back to her maiden home, and didn't follow her everywhere, was he still her, Jojo's husband? Chapter 3309. You don't know how to do things all day long, and don't blame yourself for not finding the reason. Why don't you say that your skills aren't good enough, and that you'll be brushed aside as soon as you meet a young lady? Then isn't she older than me? Mu Wuxia retorted indignantly. The father and son pair walked far away while cursing. Mu Jingfeng came out from behind the tree and coldly glanced at the father and son pair's departing figures. Then, he stood in place and specially waited for the little stoic. It wasn't until less than an hour later that Mu Jingfeng finally saw the little stoic coming out of the old man's courtyard. His face was gloomy, and he stepped forward to block her path. I have something to say to you. There's nothing to say between us. Arbor glanced at him coldly. He was disinclined to say anything else, and directly walked past him. Halt! Mu Jingfeng was so angry that his face and neck were a bit red. I'm asking you, do you know how to draw transportation talismans? Arbor paused and turned to look at him. His eyes narrowed icily. Mu Rochuan told you? It doesn't matter who told me. You just have to tell me yes or no. Arbor snorted and rolled his eyes at him without hesitation. It's none of your business. Mu Jingfeng was first angry, but then he was delighted. The little stoic didn't deny it, which meant that this matter was true. Mu Jingfeng couldn't help but become excited. As the family head of a talisman clan, he knew better than anyone how difficult it was to draw transportation talismans. His daughter could actually draw a transportation talisman that cost millions of spirit coins on the black market. What did this mean? It meant that Arbor knew how to draw transportation talismans. Mu Jingfeng couldn't help but become excited when he thought of this. His daughter actually knew how to draw transportation talismans that had disappeared for several hundred years? What an exciting piece of news this was. It had to be known that the method to draw transportation talismans had long been lost in the Talisman Patrician clan. The existing transportation talisman matrices were all left behind by the ancestors, and there were only a few left on the market. Once Mu Jingfeng thought about how he could grasp the method to draw transportation talismans, he would burst with joy. If that was the case, not only would his status in the Mu clan be raised a lot, he would also gain the support of more elders. Perhaps in the future, no one would be able to threaten his position as the patriarch. In addition, their Mu family's reputation would definitely rise to the next level. The entire Mu family would flourish in his hands, bringing unparalleled glory to their ancestors. Mu Jingfeng seemed to have foreseen the Mu family's future, and he was beaming with joy like a spring breeze. Jojo, you're a daughter of the Mu family. Naturally, you have to think for the Mu family. The method of drawing the teleportation talisman is extremely important to my Mu clan. If you are willing, I'm not willing. Arbor's cold words were like a bucket of ice water that poured over Mu Jingfeng from head to toe, chilling him to the bone. Mu Jingfeng was incomparably enraged on the spot as he bellowed, You! What did you say? Deafness needs to be treated. Arbor glanced at him, then turned around and walked towards Yulan Court. Not a single word would be wasted if they didn't see eye to eye. She really didn't know where he got the guts to actually think that Sir Jojo would tell him the method to draw transportation talismans. Even if she told the street cats and dogs, he wouldn't benefit from it. Save it. You're always deceiving yourself and others. Did you think that Sir Jojo would compromise like mother? Dream on. Chapter 33:15. 4. 915 4th star. The talisman was taken back by Madame Hua, but she still carefully placed it at the bottom of the box. Madame Hua breathed a sigh of relief and then said, Let me tell you, Dongni, you have to believe it. This is an ancient golden talisman. You can definitely make a fortune out of it. It has a wide range. It can grow spirit coins, gold, silver, jade, or jewelry. I grew a set of head ornaments last time. Guess what? Mu Dongni was a little stunned. She looked at her sister-in-law with shining eyes and asked, What is it? Tell me, sister-in-law. Madame Hua lowered her voice and whispered, It grew a set of the same head ornaments for me. The luster and gloss are no different from the original head ornaments. Uffed. Mu Dongni laughed and then glanced at Madame Hua. Sister-in-law, do you really think I'm stupid? You're trying to fool me. How can there be such a talisman in this world? Grow gold. Grow gold and get gold? Grow the head ornaments, and get the head ornaments. Can you really grow spirit coins and get spirit coins? Madame Hua casually pushed her away, and carefully buried the box of spirit coins under the willow tree again. She turned around and grabbed Madame Hua to leave. If you reveal this to anyone, I won't let you off. The next day, Mu Dongni originally wanted to meet the legendary little crown princess, but because Madame Hua revealed this secret to her, her mind was a little erratic for the whole day. She sent her personal maid Junju to watch under the old willow tree. She didn't see her fifth sister-in-law under the willow tree for the whole day, so she couldn't help but feel a little puzzled. Could it be that her sister-in-law really didn't lie to her? In the afternoon, the young crown prince consort paid a visit to second aunt and fifth aunt's courtyard. The moment she mentioned whether or not they should continue to play horse diao, those two fellows' faces darkened as they respectfully coaxed her away. The little crown princess pretended to be very angry and angrily went out. Midway, she made a detour to the prince's mansion. After getting used to the feeling, she went to Paradise Planet to continue refining medicine. Up until now, she had never tried to refine a black vein top-grade pill. One could imagine how difficult it was to refine a black vein pill. Currently, 4 of the 9 stars on her 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron had already lit up. The cauldron fire had also changed from its original red color to a faint glazed color. The cauldron fire was extremely pure, so it would naturally be of great help to her alchemy. Now, she didn't even need to pay attention to the fire anymore. What she needed to do was to put the correct amount of medicinal herbs into the medicinal cauldron. Then, she could be a hands-off shopkeeper and let the medicinal cauldron refine on its own until the sound of the pill being formed could be heard from the medicinal cauldron. At this moment, the little girl was chatting with Little Tree. They were talking about Little Tree's report to her that he needed to find a time to go into seclusion and stabilize his realm in the middle stage of growth stage. That night, Arbor did not return to the Mu family. Instead, he casually found an excuse to stay in the Wangfu. Anyway, there were still 3 days before the old master's birthday. She could go back the day after tomorrow. When she stayed in the Mu family, even when she was in the Jade Orchid Garden, she always felt that something was staring at her. How could she dare to casually enter Paradise Planet? However, it was different in the Wangfu. She could come and go as she pleased. It just so happened that these 2 days, she was going to study the black vein pill for the old master, so she wouldn't return to the Mu family. The time she spent on Fish Orchid Planet was 12 times longer, so she probably wouldn't have enough time to study at the Mu family. Chapter 33:17. That's not bad either. This was a supreme grade pill with black veins. Let alone 1 in 100 pills. The pill alchemists outside probably couldn't produce 1 in 10,000 pills. Arbor nodded upon hearing this. That's true. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal returned the bottle to the little stoic with great difficulty. The little stoic's lips involuntarily twitched at his grief-stricken expression. She then consoled him. If I become proficient in refining next time, I'll refine it for you like candy. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal's eyes brightened abruptly when he heard this, and he stretched out his arms to carry the little stoic. Stoic face, then I'll rely on you. Refine it well, and quickly become proficient. Do you really think supreme grade pills with black veins can be refined like candy? She was just consoling him. She didn't expect this guy to have such great confidence in her. When Arbor saw him randomly carrying her over, he immediately flashed out of Paradise Planet with the pill. The moment he came out, he heard the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal shout, "Aya Jojo, quickly come in." Arbor didn't understand what was going on. Before he could react, he heard a clap of thunder coming from the roof. The roof was broken open with a boom, and lightning struck down at him. Fuck, what was going on? What kind of heavenly wrath did he incur that a sudden bolt of lightning would strike him? He hadn't reached the 5 spirits reincarnation tribulation yet, so what was there to strike him for? The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal flashed to his side, and said with a helpless smile, "I forgot to tell you. A heaven-defying existence like a divine rank black veins pill will definitely be struck by lightning." Arbor. Why didn't you say so earlier? Looking at the rolling thunder, Arbor flew out of the hole in the roof with a whoosh. At this time, the king consort, who had been alarmed by the thunder, was rushing over here with a group of people in a panic. Arbor only had time to throw down a sentence. Don't chase after me. Stop, Imperial Ant. He flew far away with a whoosh. At the same time at the Mu estate, Wuxia, who was digging for a stone box under the large willow tree, was suddenly startled by a sudden clap of thunder. Her hands involuntarily trembled as she held the stone box. Looking up, the entire horizon was illuminated in a snow-white color. I've really seen a ghost. She couldn't help but mutter, feeling a little guilty. Sister-in-law, Mu Dongni cried out, startling Madame Hua again. Her hands trembled, and she almost dropped the box. What's the matter? Wuxia coughed. Hurry up and open the box, Mu Dongni urged. Madame Hua glanced at her and snorted. You don't believe me, so why are you here? Why don't you show me? Wuxia sneered and opened the stone box. Mu Dongni stared blankly as a large pile of spirit coins fell out of the box. Oh my god! These spirit coins were at least twice as much as what he saw last night. Wuxia happily took out the golden talisman and kowtowed to it. She muttered a few words and bit her finger to feed the talisman paper. Only then did she put the golden talisman back into the box and buried the box in the ground again. You're not taking it away? Mu Dongni was surprised. Why should I take it away? Wuxia looked at her as if she was an idiot. Isn't it good to bury it here to make more money? Mu Dongni nodded suspiciously. The next day, Mu Dongni asked Zhangju to closely monitor the movements of the fifth branch. She also went to the old willow tree several times to check, but didn't see anything unusual with fifth sister-in-law. In the evening, Mu Dongni appeared under the willow tree as scheduled. Seeing Wuxia dig out more spirit coins than yesterday, she completely believed her. Chapter 33:18. Hey, fifth sister-in-law, how about I join you? Mu Dongni looked at Madame Hua with bright eyes and smiled at her ingratiatingly. Fifth sister-in-law, please agree with me. She thought happily that if the spirit coins in her hand could increase endlessly, it would be no problem to support her lover. She wouldn't have to beg for money from old master. Madame Hua glanced at her and shook her head. That won't do. You didn't agree when I asked you to join us. Now that you see the effect, you want to join us. How can there be such a good thing in the world? Madame Hua snorted. I took the risk for a long time the first 2 times. Mu Dongni smiled obsequiously. Sister-in-law, I'll give you some commission. I have 1,000,000 spirit coins here. Help me plant it. By the way, can the 1,000,000 spirit coins be doubled? Why are you here if you don't believe me? Madame Hua pushed her hand away angrily. Let me tell you, the doubled amount of this kind of golden talisman can't exceed 5,000,000 spirit coins at most. If I give you 1,000,000 spirit coins quota, won't I have less for myself? I a sister-in-law, aren't we family? Just plant it for me, just plant it for me. Mu Dongni continued to coax and pester for a long time. She said that she would give Madame Hua half the commission, and then she said that if Madame Hua didn't help her, she would tell others that Madame Hua had a golden talisman. Madame Hua had no choice but to agree after being threatened and tempted by her. Taking advantage of the fact that no one was around, the two of them buried their money in the ground. After confirming it again and again, Mu Dongni walked away full of hope. Great, by tomorrow, she could earn 2,000,000 spirit coins. The day after tomorrow, it would be 4,000,000. And the day after that, ha 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 ha. Thinking of this, she couldn't help laughing out loud. In the future, she wouldn't have to worry about money to support her lover. Maybe she could support a few more. Who said that a widowed woman would have a hard time? She would still have to live her life happily and happily. The next afternoon, boom! The flashes of lightning in the sky alarmed everyone in Dragon Flame City. Damn it, these 2 days, the thunder tribulations fell on Dragon Flame City quite frequently. Prince Emo had just finished his discussion with the Emperor. As soon as he walked out of the Imperial study, he saw that somewhere in the southeast of the Imperial City, dark clouds were rolling. From the looks of it, it really seemed like someone was undergoing the 5 spirits reincarnation tribulation. Yo, the sky is clear, why is there thunder again? The lightning from 2 days ago had come in a strange manner, and disappeared quickly as well. When some people went to check it out, they couldn't find anything. They only saw a hole in the outskirts. Emolien glanced at the sky and prepared to leave the palace to find his wife. However, this lightning strike that seemed to be the five spirits' reincarnation tribulation attracted the attention of many people. All the idol practitioners in the city, those who had some strength, rushed towards that place. Some were checking, some were probing, and each of them had their own ulterior motives. Arbor planned to go back to the Mu family today, but she had to wait for her husband's carriage to pick her up, and then the two of them would go back together. Before leaving, the emperor's aunt prepared a lot of delicious food for her to eat on the way back. Arbor touched her little belly. It was round and didn't seem to be hungry at all. As soon as she walked out of the gate of the prince's mansion, her attention was attracted by the tribulation clouds in the sky. Today's tribulation clouds looked much thicker than the ones she experienced the day before. Chapter 33:19. From the looks of it, she really looked like she wanted to strike someone to death. Rumble. Louis ran, who was gorgeously dressed as she walked over from the street entrance with her servants, jumped in fright at the sound of thunder. When she looked up and saw Arbor standing at the entrance, her eyes lit up, and she couldn't help but curse bad luck in a low voice. Greetings to the crown princess. Louis Ran learned her lesson. She thought that if she didn't greet this stoic-faced crown princess, she would be nagged by the princess consort again in the future, saying that she didn't know etiquette and so on. Humph, wasn't it just a bit of empty courtesy? Who didn't know how to act? Louis Ran squatted there with her maidservant for a minute or two, but when she didn't hear Arbor's voice, she couldn't help but gnash her teeth in anger. She raised her head slightly to look at her with an impatient expression. She was purposely giving her the cold shoulder, right? Yet she saw that the little crown princess was looking up at the sky, her attention focused on the tribulation clouds in the horizon, as if she didn't notice her at all. Louis Ran couldn't help but pinch the handkerchief in her hand and gnash her teeth in anger. Greetings to the crown princess. Louis Ran stifled a mouthful of turbid air and practically yelled out loud. After she yelled out, she heard an indifferent voice enter her ears from behind. Miss Lu doesn't know how to greet people with courtesy, so continue squatting here for 2 hours and learn properly. Louis Ran trembled all over and turned her head to look. She saw the crown prince, who was dressed in formal court attire and had a posture as tall and straight as jade, slowly walking down from the carriage. At this moment, he was sweeping his cold gaze over her. Louis Ran's heart became increasingly uneasy, and she hurriedly stuttered. Greetings to your highness the crown prince. Lily girl, born in the countryside, has a rather loud voice. I didn't mean to speak loudly like this. After she finished speaking, she wished for nothing more than to slap herself in the face. In order to gloss over this matter, she actually slandered her own image in front of His Highness the Crown Prince. She was about to cry from her own stupidity. However, Crown Prince Emo simply ignored her. Whether Louis Ran's image was ruined or not, it had nothing to do with him. The little crown princess also regained her senses at this moment. She leaped towards him and tugged at his sleeve, saying in a crisp voice, Lien, look at the horizon. Is someone going through the five spirits reincarnation tribulation? I'm going to advance to the divine realm. Emo Lien nodded hesitantly. It does look like it, but I'm not too sure. Then should we go over and have a look? The little fellow's eyes twinkled, as if she was watching a good show. Emo Lien couldn't help but laugh. If you want to go, then let's go. Anyway, she was going back to the Mu family now. It was still early, just past noon. It was fine to go and see what was going on. What's the southeast direction? Looking at the direction, it should be near Feng Hua Temple in the southeastern suburbs of the city. Emo Lien held her small hand and said, Let's go. The two of them boarded the carriage. The coachman rode on a spirit horse that moved at an extremely fast speed, rushing towards Feng Hua Temple. Before they even reached the place, they heard a clamor coming from afar. Emo Lien had the coachman stop the carriage by the roadside. Holding his wife's hand, he got off the carriage and looked towards the sky above Feng Hua Temple not far away. They saw a white figure floating in the air. Wisps of lightning circled around her body, causing her entire body to be enveloped in a faint purplish-blue light. It was a female cultivator undergoing the five spirits reincarnation tribulation. Naturally, Arbor looked up the 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron was much more effective than the soul congregation bell. The little fellow had actually lent it to her. All right, looks like he's determined to save this female cultivator's life. At the same time, the 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron transformed into an enormous cauldron that swiftly enveloped the female cultivator. At the same time, the terrifying tribulation of lightning and fire descended in a mighty manner. Everyone felt an expanse of violet light and crimson-red light revolve before their eyes, and it was like a 3000 m tall waterfall that flowed down. The lightning and fire condensed into a waterfall that instantly smashed onto the 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron. An enormous shaking bang sounded out by their ears as the endless lightning and fire followed along the tribulation clouds in the sky and meandered down. Rumble! All of them smashed onto the 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron. 4 stars swiftly lit up on the 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron, and it was even to the extent that the little fellow's sharp eyes suddenly noticed that the 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron was surrounded by a glazed luster, as if it was sucking in large mouthfuls of the energy of lightning and fire, and it was so comfortable that it wished for nothing more than to dance with joy. Such a saint artifact naturally had a spirit. Although this artifact's spirit was still extremely weak, the joy it conveyed to Arbor caused Arbor to instantly realize that this 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron was actually able to absorb the energy of the 5 spirits of heaven and earth. Moreover, Miss Chiao was simply stunned when she saw the 5th star on the cauldron swiftly light up. So my stubbornness in wanting to save her actually allowed the tiny cauldron to obtain benefits. Sure enough, kindness was rewarded. Lord Jojo instantly felt a sense of satisfaction. This was truly a pleasant surprise. At this moment, the exhausted Hao Fei couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. She was enveloped beneath the 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron, and she was able to clearly sense that all the lightning and fire that descended from the sky were all blocked by this cauldron. She didn't dare think too much, and hurriedly sat down cross-legged before withdrawing a spirit pill from her inner world with trembling hands and swallowing it. After that, she hurriedly made the best use of her time to close her eyes and cultivate, as she wanted to make the best use of her time to recover some strength. For the sake of this 5 spirits reincarnation tribulation, she'd actually been searching for defensive spirit artifacts and various types of spirit artifacts to protect herself since 1.5 years ago. Furthermore, she had already discussed this with the abbot of Fenghua Temple and requested the monks of the temple to protect her and strengthen her defense. However, even if he was fully prepared, he could not resist the destructive pressure of the heavenly Tao. She had gone through the wood, water, earth, and lightning tribulations. Actually, by the time she reached the lightning tribulation, she was already completely exhausted and felt that she might die at any moment. Therefore, she gritted her teeth and persevered. Finally, the lightning tribulation came to an end. Now, all she had to do was endure the fire tribulation. However, what made her despair was that the great tribulation of lightning and fire had arrived. Lightning and fire tribulations were truly rare. When the 3,000 male Xiozha went through the 5 spirits reincarnation tribulation, not even one of them would encounter the tribulation of thunder and fire. However, Hao Fei had encountered it just like that. He had to admit that his luck was pretty good. Just when she thought she was about to die, a little girl actually helped her. Chapter 33:27. So, actually, she should explain it to her husband now, right? Arbor stole a glance at her husband and nimbly crawled 2 steps towards him. She placed her hands on her knees and knelt obediently for a while. She saw the man pursing his thin lips and sitting there with his head tilted to the side. He was calmly pouring tea, and his gaze never once looked in her direction. Lord Jojo hurriedly sneaked a few steps towards him and knelt obediently again. Only a glimmer of light peeked out from the corner of his eyes as he glanced at him. No reaction. Arbor stuck out a little finger and secretly poked his arm. Still no reaction. What should she do? The atmosphere was now a little awkward. Arbor did not give up and reached over again to tug at his sleeve. Seeing that he was still ignoring her, she hurriedly tugged at it a few more times. Rip! Arbor looked at the half piece of cloth in her hand and looked at him with a slightly speechless expression. She said dryly, This cloth is not very good. She did not use much strength. How did it tear? Emolien abruptly turned his head, glaring at her with his phoenix eyes that contained a bit of anger. He grabbed her little chin with one hand and said in a low voice, Do you know how dangerous it was just now? You dared to take such a risk just to save a stranger? The moment you rushed out, did you think about me? The little fellow was shocked and hurriedly rushed over to hug him. She said in a small voice, I think nothing will happen. Really nothing will happen. Emolien narrowed his phoenix eyes. His eyes seemed to be filled with a violent storm in an instant. If you lose a single strand of hair, guess what will happen to that person today? His voice was cold and heavy. Arbor saw that something was wrong. Her husband was boiling with anger today. In the past 10 years, in the past 7 or 8 years, he was only this angry when she disappeared to Paradise Planet and reappeared. Arbor thought about it and felt that she was indeed a little wrong. She said in a small voice, I am really confident. You see, the lightning fire did not even dare to hit me before. Emolien's eyes flashed with anger. Stop talking. Just because the lightning fire didn't dare to strike you once before, you think it won't dare to strike you again? Expansion. That was the heavenly Tao. This little guy was really too bold. He closed in on her. He was only inches away from her, but she could clearly see the anger in his eyes. The little guy swallowed his saliva and felt that the situation was a little serious, but he still answered obediently. I feel that it doesn't dare to hit me every time. I just don't dare to. Emolien gazed at her deeply before asking in a low voice, Guess what I would do if something really happened to you? Although his voice was light, it felt a little heavy. In the depths of those dark eyes, there seemed to be 2 deep whirlpools spinning rapidly, and a terrifying restlessness raged in the depths of those eyes. Arbor felt his heart tremble slightly. His big eyes looked around, but he didn't dare to look at him. Jojo's Lotus looked a little scared now the carriage stopped in front of the Mu estate. Emolien's handsome face was gloomy. He grabbed Arbor's little hand and dragged her out of the carriage. His 5 fingers tightly clasped her little hand, holding it tightly and tightly. His hand was like a furnace. Sir Jojo's palm was a little sweaty from the warmth of his hand, but she didn't dare to throw his hand away. Chapter 33:28. She wasn't a fool. If she were to add fuel to the fire now, wouldn't she be angering this man even more? The 2 guards at the door hurriedly stepped forward and respectfully greeted, Your Highness the Crown Prince. Following that, they were shocked by the Crown Prince's cold gaze. His Highness's gaze was filled with murderous intent, as if he wanted to lash out at the heavens and the earth. The 2 guards were so frightened that they trembled all over. How would they dare to speak? They retreated several steps and stood to the side with their heads lowered. Emolien held Arbor's small hand and strode towards Jade Orchid Court. Sir Jojo's steps were small, so he could only run after him. As they ran, the little Jojo Emperor got a little angry. Sir Jojo had already explained, so why was this fellow still angry? Arbor tugged at his hand forcefully and angrily wanted to throw him away. However, that man held on tightly without any intention of letting go. He even turned around and glared at her with a warning. You're not allowed to throw me away. He exerted some strength and pulled Miss Qiao to his side, securing her in his embrace. The 2 of them had just entered the door and walked a short distance in front of the corridor when they tugged at each other. There were many people coming and going here, but when they saw His Highness the Crown Prince's angry expression, all of them were like mice that had seen a cat. They were so frightened that they retreated several steps and shrunk their heads. No one dared to go forward and provoke him. Meanwhile, Mu Ruian, who was hiding at the corner of the corridor, was secretly delighted. She was so happy that she couldn't wait to shout out loud. Heavens! His Highness the Crown Prince was finally tired of the Crown Princess? This must be because the little Crown Princess's unlikable personality had angered His Highness. She deserved it. Mu Ruian lowered her head to look at herself and urged the servant girl beside her. Quan help this miss take a look. Is the hairpin on my head crooked? No, Mississippi. Kwana looked at her miss in astonishment. She didn't understand why Miss would suddenly ask such a question. Mu Ruian pushed her hand away and took a deep breath. Just as she turned out of the corridor, she wanted to walk towards the young and handsome crown prince. She saw the crown prince pick up the little crown princess with one hand. His face was full of anger as he pressed down on her little face and kissed her hard twice. Mu Ruian was dumbfounded. The smile on her face instantly froze. The servants hiding under the eaves of the corridor lowered their heads, not daring to look around. The young crown prince consort angrily used her sleeve to forcefully wipe her small face as she angrily shouted, "What are you doing? You're not allowed to wipe it." His face was filled with anger as he grabbed her sleeve and forcefully pulled her little hand away. Arbor's eyes widened as he stared at the man who wanted to rebel. He deeply felt that his majesty as a little emperor was being challenged. "Stinky Lotus, put me down." With her in his arms, Emolian strode towards the Jade Orchid Court. When he passed by Mu Ruian, he didn't even give her a cold glance. His entire body seemed to be covered in frost as he brushed past Mu Ruian. Mu Ruian twisted her handkerchief with both hands, almost tearing it apart. She was so angry that her face turned ashen. "Miss, what's wrong with you?" Kwana looked at her miss in confusion. "Let's go." Mu Ruian turned to leave, the anger in her heart continuously rising. The more she walked, the more anxious she became. When she rushed into the fifth branch's courtyard, her entire person was shrouded in anger, wishing that she could explode.